And now,
it's 10 a.m.
let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, happy Monday, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. What's going on, Ben?
Doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How was your weekend? Good times?
Rainy, for the most part.
Yes, it was. I did notice that.
Hosted a little gathering Friday night. That was fun.
What, like a kegger?
No, kind of a end of season for some of the basketball people. So it was fun.
So, kegger.
Not quite.
No?
Can you even get those in Utah?
No, but I mean, Wyoming's not that far.
In the rain. No one's driving to Wyoming in the rain. It was rainy all day Friday. So no, not that. But a good little event. Nice put the bow on the end of the season. How was your weekend?
It was good. No, like ultimately it went well, but it was fairly chaotic. Happy third birthday to my daughter Maggie.
Oh yeah,
which is today.
Wow,
so
very exciting.
Excited about that. But we had a party for her little friends on Saturday, and the rain was really inconvenient because we had it at our house, but we were gonna have outside activities, for the little kids, and but we had to go inside, but that turned out fine. And then we had the family over yesterday to do, another little party, and so it was fairly chaotic hosting people like a couple days in a row,
Mm-hmm.
But everything went well. At the same time, Miss Maggie is potty training, and so like she's we're using it as a thing. Like you're turning 3, like 3-year-olds, big kids.
Yeah,
we're hitting the potty.
Mm-hmm.
So my weekend was filled with some poopy underwear.
Oh, okay.
Which was a downside.
Yours or hers?
Not mine.
You guys not doing the potty watch?
We're trying some. We've tried some timer stuff. We've done some of that, but to varying levels of success.
Yeah.
And she actually did pretty well this weekend, but
I think you did the smart
she's
thing
learning.
waiting. Some people try and do it at like 2, right as they turn 2. It's like it's not going to work. It's too early. I think waiting is a good idea.
Well, having her kind of have some skin in the game too was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Like we tried it a couple of times, like 6 months ago, and it's just she wasn't there.
Yeah.
And now she's got some enthusiasm about it, so we're going for it.
Good.
But it's one of those things where you can't be mad.
Sure.
You're not real stoked that it happened.
Correct.
But your reaction really matters. And so it's like, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
Yay. No, fine.
Yeah. I got to credit the mother of my children who did a very good job potty training the kids on weekends when I was working, and I think one of them I was out of town, and she was like, I'm just doing it. We're going to do the thing. And she nailed it. So I didn't deal with that as much. That was not a struggle we had.
No?
Not really. It was really not a struggle we had. That was a quick weekend for both of them. So I was lucky. And of course, every kid's different. We didn't do anything right. We just got lucky.
Yeah. Well, my now almost 7-year-old, she was, it was an instant, like you're talking about. Like she was like, all right, I'm good. And she had a couple accidents, and then it was,
Some people, it's like a 6-month thing. Like their kids are always trying and failing and trying and failing.
I don't mean to, bring up Lloyd's business, but I know he had a real challenge with one of his.
Yeah.
And it's just.
Every kid's different.
Yeah, right. And I realize that on a daily basis.
Yep.
And we're all just trying to do our best, right? The kids, the parents, siblings, we're all just trying to do our best. And just a little grace. It's all right. Poopy underwear, what's the worst of it?
Yeah, right. It's doable.
By the way, do you have anybody in your life or have you talked to anybody about what life was like before disposable diapers?
No, I'm sure it was a disaster.
Oh, I have no idea why people even had children. My neighbors were these widows in their 90s. Ben, they both, one's passed on, but moved since. And but when we first had kids, we had them over, and they wanted to see the baby and all that. And they were telling us about, raising their children. And truly the best day of their lives was when their last kid was potty trained, because they were using these. I mean, it involved laundry of these diapers on a daily basis, disposal, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a thing. Man, bless disposable diapers.
Yeah. A probably environmental disaster and a real lifesaver.
A real worth one. a real worthwhile one. Excited about it. Sorry, Mother Earth.
Yeah. Hey, I used them.
I've talked to a lot of my more earthy friends, and they've started out with and there's a service, right? Diaper service, cloth diaper service or whatever, and it always lasts like a month, maybe 2 weeks. They're like, can't do this. There's Huggies down at the Costco. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
Anywho, Ben, it was an interesting sports weekend.
Yeah, a lot of sports going on.
What do you want to start? We could start NBA playoffs. We could start draft.
We start with the playoffs. I think that's kind of the interesting point. I think Rudy Gobert is proving what I think a lot of fans locally saw, which is Rudy Gobert is not a problem in the playoffs. We knew that. There were issues with how the Jazz played. There were issues with how the Jazz were built. I still think pulling the plug on that roster was the right decision. I think as long as those two players were your best players, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz's ceiling was significantly lower than what you're seeing from the Minnesota Timberwolves right now, and I want to get more into that in a moment. But I still think it was the right decision. Now, it has got to be daunting to be Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck and Ryan Smith and look at the rest of the Western Conference and be like, oh, man, Ant's 22, Victor Wembanyama's 20, Chet Holmgren's 21, Ja Morant's like 24, 23. Like the West is just absolutely stacked. Denver's not going anywhere for a while. Just like how do you make noise in this conference? When is this door going to open for you again there where you have a chance to have even one of the 10 best players, not in the NBA, in the conference? And then how do you get a team back to being even remotely competitive? Because with all due respect to the Jazz's young players, who I think are all good and are going to be in the NBA, and Lauri Markkanen's a very good player, it's like, what I watched over the weekend, the Jazz aren't remotely close to. I mean, they don't have anyone remotely close to as good as Anthony Edwards is, and they're not going to have anyone as good as Vic as long as Vic stays healthy and gets there. And Shea's quite a player, and it's just the West is stacked. It's just stacked once again.
Yes, but I mean, who in the league does have Anthony Edwards? I mean, he's incredible.
Right. Yeah.
But which is always, have some perspective. I mean, you yourself have called Wemby, the next thing, whatever. Yeah. I mean, but think about this though, because we're thinking long term.
Yeah.
Because the Jazz are not going to be that next year. If you're expecting that, then I don't know what to tell you. Lest they land said big game, that's not happening because they're in a rebuild. But how many in his general manager career? How many MVPs has Sam Presti traded?
3?
2, but lost a third.
Okay.
And let's not count Rusty
because he didn't trade Kevin Durant.
No,
Kevin Durant signed elsewhere.
Correct.
But Russell Westbrook won an MVP. James Harden won an MVP. Okay.
So Presti's such a bozo. How do I know he's not going to wake up and trade Chet tomorrow? The Timberwolves have been one of the worst run franchises in sports for pretty much their whole existence, and are in a salary cap nightmare and really have some big decisions that they have to make. Oh, and their ownership situation is
a disaster.
A disaster.
Yep.
So let's see. Who else do we want to talk? I mean, like in this league, especially now, I don't know what tomorrow's going to be like. Oh, San Antonio How many MVPs faked an injury to get out from under their franchise?
Yeah. Right. And
one.
No, look, I'm totally with you. And that's why I said I wanted to talk a little bit more about Minnesota going forward, which is, yes, it has to be daunting. Yes, this is going to be a long process for the Jazz. Like that, they're not going to have a summer where they put it together and all of a sudden they're back in the conversation. You're going to have to build through the draft a couple of times. They've already done it 2 years in a row. You might have to do it 2 more years in a row. You're going to have to hit on some trades. You're going to have to hit on some mid to late round draft picks to find guys that are far above average. Like, there's a lot of work that has to be done for the Jazz to get back in this conversation, and I don't think it's going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months. It's just this process is going to be pushed out quite a while because of the rest of the NBA. Now, the league, 18 months ago, it wasn't even that long ago. Guess it wasn't. It was when this whole second apron stuff started to pop up. It is designed specifically, the new CBA, to prevent these teams from running the league for 8 straight years.
Yes.
It is specifically designed to make sure that you get to a point where you start getting really good, and you're going to lose players as a result because they're all going to want to get paid, and you simply are not going to be able to afford to pay them. They're going to have to go elsewhere if they want to get fair market value. Now, if you get a bunch of guys who want to sign below market value, which very rarely happens, fine, you can keep your team together. It's not going to be the case.
It is designed to make sure that you do not have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant on the same team.
Right.
Specifically.
Exactly.
Like they created that rule in response to that team.
So I don't think you're going to have these teams keep these super teams together that are in the process of building right now for a very long period of time. Now, we can go piece by piece and pick apart where these teams have fatal flaws. And we can start last night with Minnesota, who was awesome and honestly might be a true contender this year. I mean, they're going to give Denver a hell of a series coming up in the next round. They might beat Denver. I still think having Jokic is the difference. And look, Minnesota beating a very, very flawed Suns team, which we've talked about all year long, how flawed
Phoenix
that Suns
is terrible.
I mean, that's not a championship by itself.
You can't have 3 max players and then have anybody else on the team.
Yeah, and you can't.
And that's an example.
And those 3 guys specifically are so poorly put together.
Yeah,
but regardless,
it doesn't work.
We can talk about the big picture and what the long run looks like for the Minnesota Timberwolves and say, well, 2 years from now, Mike Conley's going to be quite old. Rudy Gobert is going to be pretty old. He's not as old as Mike is, but he's going to start to lose it. Traditionally, centers of that ilk start to drop off dramatically quickly. You remember DeAndre Jordan was a big deal for a while, and then DeAndre Jordan woke up one morning and basically couldn't play basketball anymore. Was totally unimpactful. And then they're going to run into the salary cap issues of they're going to have to get rid of Cat, who was awesome last night. Credit to Cat. They'll probably keep Anthony Edwards around as long as he's willing to stay in Minnesota. But last night, to me, even watching their social media, felt exactly like the Jazz beating the Oklahoma City Thunder with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and Donovan's rookie year and everyone being like, oh man, this team's going to be together forever. Like the Jazz have their next iteration. They've got all these young players. They still have draft picks. They're awesome. They're going to be the real deal. And that was, 5 years ago? None of those players are on the team anymore. Like that is how quickly the NBA changes. And you're only 1 or 2 playoff disappointments away from all this excitement that you have after winning a series like the Timberwolves did last night, being totally dashed and not hitting the reset button. Maybe they don't do it as dramatically as the Jazz did. But like you said, how quickly things change in the NBA and how difficult it actually is to see it through to win a title.
Can I get lost in the weeds on something with you for a second? Your take on bigs? Because like bigs like Dikembe Mutombo played great basketball until they were like 105.
Yeah.
Because their value was evident and really didn't deteriorate because, like, Dikembe Mutombo could always be a rim protector.
Yeah.
And a big physical big. And he was enough on offense that you could play him. I would argue that DeAndre Jordan didn't forget how to play basketball. He was never that great, and the league passed him by because he could never shoot free throws.
Sure.
And so all of a sudden, the league figured out, well, you can't play this guy. If he can't shoot free throws, you can't play him. And he was a decent shot blocker, but he was never a good big. He was never a good rim, like, protector, quote unquote. You know, Rudy's best defensive years have come not when he's led the league in shot blocking. Quite the contrary, right? He got his first defensive player of the year after he led the league in block shots. And he told us about it, Ben. You were in those rooms. He told us about how his defense had evolved and how it wasn't necessarily about blocking shots. I think that, and this comes back to where we started this conversation, playing Rudy in the playoffs. I think it comes back to, does the league evolve past Rudy before he's ready to retire? I don't think Rudy's, and I could be wrong about this, I'm not a doctor, but I think Rudy can do what he's doing forever. I mean, as long as he's long enough to guard the pick and roll single-handedly and to, cover a monstrous amount of space, and maybe his body gives out on him. I don't know. That's definitely a thing with bigs as well. But I don't know. I don't know if Rudy all of a sudden loses it as much as, well, yeah, you can't play that guy because he's so offensively limited. The good thing about Rudy is he can shoot free throws well enough that you can play him. But Roland, think of like Tyson Chandler, like guys who can do one thing, and that's roll to the rim and dunk. They're good for like 10 minutes, and then you figure out like, oh, I just got to drop the big, and I totally take that away, and they can't do anything else. And then next thing you know, it's out of the league. So I would think the biggest threat to Rudy's career is, does the NBA somehow figure him out and make him unplayable?
I think Rudy, his issue will be going forward is that he's going to lose a step athletically, which he's already a little bit slower. Last year, you saw how unimpactful he was because he was dealing with a groin injury all year. And it did take about a half step away from his game.
And the coaches hadn't figured it out.
And they hadn't figured it out.
They hadn't figured it out.
But because he couldn't move as well as he did this year when he was healthy again, you saw how quickly unimpactful he became. So if he loses that quickness that he has to cover all that ground, to rotate. Now, the rest of the guys around him are awesome. I mean, there was a possession last night where they blew up a great showing of ball movement from the Suns, a ball that flew around the perimeter, got to the baseline. They tried to kick it, and Rudy wasn't even on the floor, and these 5 Timberwolves players shut it down. They were awesome. I mean, everybody was rotating, running their butts off, doing everything you have to. But if Rudy slows down a little bit, I think it will have a major impact. I think we will see it. But he is not going to do, like you said, Tyson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan, where those guys turned 31 and totally fell off the map because they could just no longer run and jump like they could.
The biggest threat to Rudy's career is the issue of, what do you do when everybody on the floor can shoot a three? What do you do with Rudy when everyone on the floor? We've seen what happens when Rudy's guy can shoot a three. We saw that with Terrence Mann against the Clippers. What happens when you don't adapt when Rudy's guy can shoot a three? Well, I actually think the Timberwolves have done a good job adapting to that, and it's actually helpful in a weird way that Karl Anthony Towns doesn't want to be a physical player because he can stand out on the perimeter and put a hand in somebody's face, I mean, we've seen Rudy guard Rusty Westbrook at times. It doesn't matter. He can guard whoever. He can stand in the paint and do his thing as long as one player on the floor isn't a shooter. How many teams can legit go 5 out right now? A lot. And I'm not talking like plug together some bench/starting unit of 5 guys. I'm talking about like a legit unit that can go 5 out for the majority of the game. I don't know if it exists. We should ask Locke. He would know something like that.
Yeah.
So as long as that's a thing, I think Rudy can be super effective for the near future. The rest of his contract, anyway.
Well, that's actually where the real issue with Rudy comes up, is that his contract is so expensive.
Yeah, he's being paid a ton.
Someone is going to say, yes, he's good, but he shouldn't be the highest paid player on the roster or the second highest paid player on the roster. Now,
by the end of his deal, he won't.
No, his number actually compared to Cat and what Anthony Edwards is going to make is not that high. I mean, it's at $46 million. And by the way, he expires at the end of next season. He's got a player option for the 25-26 season.
Which he'll pick up.
I bet he drops it. Because if he's still good, he's going to try and sign another 4-year, $150 million deal.
He won't get it. He wouldn't get it now.
He could get easily $35 million a year. Now, that's $13 million less than he'd make in a season, but he may say, hey, don't risk another year of injury. I'm going to cut this deal short, and I want to sign another, 4 years, $160. And yes, it's less, but I want that extra money on the back end. It's what Drew Holiday did this offseason. You see guys do that. I'll be curious what Rudy does. If he has a good year next year, he'll opt out. If he has a bad year, he'll stay in. But that's going to be where his issue does start to crop up. People are going to say, well, what's he actually worth? Because he's absolutely critical to what the Timberwolves do And they're still, I think, going to start to prioritize their future. And again, you're one playoff series loss away from all this goodwill that they have not feeling so good anymore. You are a five-game loss to the
Nuggets.
Denver Nuggets in the next round of saying like, oh man, we've got all these issues. Actually.
I don't think they lose in 5. to
No, I don't
Denver.
think they do either, though. I don't think they do, but you're always that close.
I think that what they do with Karl Anthony Towns will be really fascinating. Because I don't think they can move Rudy. I mean, they could, but I mean, not in like an advantageous way. You know what I mean? Like anybody's movable. But if Rusty Westbrook proved anything, is you can trade anybody.
Yeah.
But for an advantageous trade, a trade that can make
Right.
you better, I don't think they can move Rudy. I think they could Karl Anthony Towns. And they can't pay all 3 of those guys at the same time.
No, you just can't pay everybody.
So-
no, he's already under contract through the 2027, 28. His final year's a player option for $60 million.
But bringing this conversation all the way full circle, where if you're the Jazz and you're looking at the rest of the West, are you intimidated? Not really. I mean, let's say the Timberwolves win the championship. There's a good chance that they would have to break the team up anyway.
Yeah, again,
Or at least trade Karl Anthony Towns.
this is the whole design of the CBA. It is designed specifically to blow these
So-
teams up.
Don't fret. Don't doom and gloom it. There's no guarantee that any of these teams will be a top. Like I said, who Sam Presti had a bad burrito and woke up the next day and traded James Harden over $5 million.
Yeah.
He gets so much credit. I still think that's one of the dumbest moves. I mean, moving off one of those guys was going to be inevitable, but at that moment,
Yeah, I mean, it probably in the long run cost you Kevin Durant. Right?
it did in the long run
Yeah.
cost you Kevin Durant because you were in the finals with those 3, and then you weren't, and then they lost to Golden State in 7. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And that basically was Kevin Durant leaving because didn't Draymond Green call Kevin Durant in tears in the parking lot? We need you.
We need you, yeah.
After they lost to Cleveland in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, you look around the West.
So, like, who's to say that some big move wouldn't make? I mean, you think? Let's say Joel Embiid wakes up one day and realizes like this Philly is a disaster.
Yeah.
In the NBA, he could make a phone call and say, "I demand a trade," and he will be moved. In the '80s, you could say, "Okay, demand a trade." All right.
Yeah, sure.
You demand away.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now he'd be out tomorrow. What if Giannis really doesn't like Milwaukee and playing with Dame anymore?
Well, and to this point, the team that we are probably not talking enough about, the disaster that is the Phoenix Suns. I mean, 2021, they make the finals with Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and they're like they've got all these draft picks going forward. And you're like, man, this team is set for a decade. Devin Booker's
be
the
in great
best
shape.
shooting guard in the
Yeah.
NBA. He's figuring out how to play both sides of the floor. Yes, you've got the expiring contract of Chris Paul coming up at some point, but you'll move it and you'll replace it. Everybody wants to live in Phoenix. Everybody's going to want to play with Devin Booker. I mean, that was the conversation. Every star in the NBA wants to play with Devin Booker.
And then-
That was the whole conversation. That was 3 years ago.
Then they used up all that cap space re-signing Chris Paul, which home run. And then you got a new,
The new owner
owner.
came in within 15 minutes of getting there, traded every asset they had to get Kevin Durant, and it was all downhill from there. So, yeah,
And
the
then-
league moves very quickly.
Ate the worst contract from probably the most overrated player in the league.
Not great articles coming out about Matt Ishbia this morning, the owner of the Suns.
That is not how it's done.
Yeah. So again, to this point where it's got to feel daunting, and at the same point, you just got to kind of ride it out if you're a Jazz fan, and the Jazz front office, and say the seas will part, and you will find an opportunity to move forward.
All right, let's touch on the rest of the NBA playoff games since we were really T-Wolves focused there, and they're on to the second round. We'll talk about the rest of the playoffs coming up in top 3 stories. We'll get into the draft as well. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben on a Monday, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Break down the biggest stories of the day. Let's go. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. On 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time for the top three stories of the day at KSLSports.com. Brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you. One on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall. The other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Sarah, where are we starting today?
Number 1, 7 local players selected in the NFL draft.
How much draft did you watch?
None.
I watched quite a bit Saturday as well. I didn't have as much on Friday. Watching more playoffs.
I had birthday duties, as I mentioned, and happened to catch some NBA playoff action, but had a tough time with the draft.
Everybody went to the Broncos or the Bills, so pretty easy to follow.
Yeah, right? What's the deal there?
Well, the
With
Broncos have kind
connection.
of always had a connection to the Utes, right? They've always kind of gone heavy in that direction, it feels like, and continued. I mean, they took Jonah Ellis far higher than I think a lot of
Third
people
round,
projected.
right?
Now, to be fair, last week Michelle came on our show, Michelle Bodkin, our Utah Insider, and said she was watching for Jonah to get drafted on Friday night, and she was totally right. That was not a lot of projection that I'd seen around either mock drafts or anywhere else.
The question I asked her was, what am I missing? Because I didn't understand why he wasn't more sought after. Because he was electric last year, and he showed a nose for getting to the quarterback, which absolutely is a thing. And his old man was dominant, dominant. So good for him. They obviously believe in him. Yeah. I get it.
No, absolutely. The Lions also drafted Sione Vaki. Cole Bishop goes to the Bills. It was a great draft for Utah again. 5 players after that season for the Utes was a big deal because I didn't think all these players were stars. Jonah obviously was. Cole Bishop obviously was. But it shows a lot of respect. Now, I loved Kingsley Suamataia going to the Kansas City
Chiefs. Andy Reid.
Having a chance to win a title and play for the greatest quarterback on the planet right now is awesome. So I like the landing spots of all of our players. You and I both like the Lions. We think that's a cool team. So Vaki going there. Now, I know there's a lot of talk that, he technically was listed as a running back when they drafted him. They're going to play him at safety, right?
He's a safety.
There's got to be no doubt about that. I mean, I haven't followed up on what his press conference and what they'd said. I don't know if they had done that even yet, but I very strongly suspect he's going to be a safety. Devon Vele goes to the Broncos as well. They had a lot of success with Tim Patrick, who has some Devon Vele comps. So we will see. We'll see how that all works out. I'm happy for all those players, though. It's incredible to get drafted and have an opportunity to make a living doing this, rooting for all of them.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I think it's a compliment to the level of college football that's played around here. And, of course, that you got to keep that going, and that's recruiting, and the college landscape is changing and all those things. But BYU had a run there for 10 years where they did not send players to the NFL. It really, admittedly, Bronco did say that it was not the goal of the program. Bronco did not. You were not necessarily coming into BYU to develop for the NFL. That was not. That was fine, right? But that was not his priority, right? Other things were going to be his priority. He was a developer of men, Ben, which is fine. But you know what? Sending players to the NFL sends a message to recruits, and it's an example of the high-level talent that you have on your team.
The idea that you can't do both, like you can develop men, and you can also go to the NFL.
Don't criticize me; it wasn't my policy.
Yeah, it's a stupid concept from Bronco.
I think he wanted to stand out in the sense that everybody else just sells NFL garbage to every recruit, right? I mean, they would have approached an 18-year-old Ben Anderson, string bean, been like, we're going to get you go in the second round, man.
Looks like a special teams guy to me. Eddie Heckard also gets an invite for a rookie camp for the Broncos. Thomas Yasmin signed an undrafted free agent deal with the Broncos as well. And then Keaton Bill signed with the Bills. Again, a very heavy Bills and Broncos weekend for our local players. So very cool. I'm excited for them. We'll see who's able to stick and who's able to make the rosters. But I mean, Jonah Ellis getting drafted in the 3rd round is a good sign. You're gonna get an opportunity to make that roster.
Do you think proven ability to play in a cold weather climate has something to do with it?
I think you get experience with some of these kids being adults, which to Broncos' credit, going back to the value of men and creating these low drama guys. Like, who was the last local player that went somewhere that like was a head case?
No, I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Like, you
well,
don't
I mean,
hear
there
about
was that receiver that made a stop at Utah that was pretty bananas.
The weed guy?
Yeah.
Josh. What was his name? But yeah, regardless.
But he didn't make it to Utah for a reason. You're like,
Yeah, right. He came through and
no, for the most part, it's pretty solid dudes and players and citizens. And the skill level is where it needs to be. Like all those things are really good signs.
the Bills GM in his video, because the Bills do some very awesome draft day stuff on social media. I mean, he said when he was talking to Cole Bishop, he's like, yeah, I've had Dalton Kincaid in my ear telling me how good of a guy you are. Like, and if Dalton says it, I believe it. Like, honestly, I think they value that some of these guys show up, they do their job, they're pros, they're not going to be a headache. And that probably has a lot of value when you're starting to pick guys in the third and fourth round.
You mean somebody that would come on a radio show weekly with alarming consistency and grace? That's a good sign that they're pretty cool.
Hey, we tried to get Cole Bishop on too, and he said no. With all
So
due
never
respect.
mind. He's going to be a
With all due
miserable
respect,
failure.
That guy's not going to have a chance. But Dalton's a hell of a dude.
Yep.
Keep paying him. Josh Gordon, by the way.
Thank you.
Josh
All
Gordon,
right.
the weed guy. Yeah.
What's next?
Number 2, a recap of the NBA playoff weekend.
Very busy weekend. How about the Lakers keeping themselves alive for one more night?
I couldn't be more surprised. I mean, I thought for sure they would just mail it in because who wants to get on the plane and go to Denver
gotta
only to eat a loss? I mean,
I felt
But
the
whatever.
same way. I felt the same way. I thought, oh man, and I've covered those teams. I remember the Jazz were down 3-0 to the Rockets, and then they hit a bunch of threes in the first quarter in Game 4. And it was just like, ugh, you're going back to Houston to lose, and they did.
and I just can't wait to see what move LeBron makes in the offseason. Put him over the hump.
But yeah, so they're going to get eliminated tonight. I suspect that series ends. We'll see. Jamal Murray has a calf strain. The Clippers battling back, taking a 30-point lead in the first half against the Mavericks, blowing it in the third quarter. Dallas actually took a lead in the fourth, but the Clippers ended up emerging on the road. We had both said that home court advantage in that series particularly did not matter.
Does not matter, but the Clippers are better without Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, he's just moving too slow.
Yeah, he's whatever. I mean, if we were talking about 100% Kawhi Leonard, maybe it would be a different story. But right now, Steve Cleveland talked about it this morning on DJ and PK, and I think he's 100% right. When he plays, they defer to him because that's what's been drilled into their mind is like, okay, this guy's only going to play 1 out of 4 games, but when he plays, you got to let him do his thing. And so nobody feels that they can really play their game because they got to defer to Kawhi. And to your point, he's not good enough to be that. So take him out of the equation and you empower Paul George. And what a shot.
Absolutely.
I mean, what a brutally awful shot.
Yeah.
I mean, the gall on somebody to think that they could take that shot and have a prayer of making it, and then it went in.
Yeah. I mean, they just don't have any rhythm when Kawhi's out there because he's playing at a different pace than everybody else right now. So that was bad for them. So very impressive win. They go back to L.A. coming up in a couple of days.
Listen,
that series tied 2-2.
If our guy Jimmy Harden, can score 33 points on 17 shots, that's real value right there. That's not old school James Harden. In my opinion, I don't know, Ben, maybe you disagree, but it doesn't seem to be the James Harden show, let the air out of the ball. He's actually playing point guard out there.
The
and
problem
I think
is
that's awesome.
There's no rhyme or reason to what James Harden does one playoff game to the next. Because he had 40 last year for the 76ers when Joel Embiid was hurt, and then we'll no-show the next game and have 6 points and turn the ball over and be uninterested. So I don't know. It doesn't mean anything for the rest of the series to me. He could be great. He could be bad. It doesn't matter what he did in Game 4.
The good news about James Harden is he did that in Dallas. And I don't know if you know Dallas's reputation when it comes to late night entertainment.
Yeah.
But that's probably a pretty good sign.
High level.
That he played well in Dallas. But can we talk about the Mavericks real quick? Because I know we want to move on to other games, and I do think you buried the lead. But how about 49 shots between Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic?
Kyrie was great. Luka's numbers looked good, but I thought he was out of rhythm as well. I thought he was totally unimpactful.
But if you just have a two-man team, I mean, that's 49 out of 81 shots between two players.
Yep.
I don't know if that works.
It doesn't. I mean, it didn't in this game.
Not in this game, but I don't know if that works going forward. Ben, the lead, obviously, is Cleveland still has yet to get to 100 points in the series. And Orlando, our Magic, come back and tie the series at 2 games apiece. Now, if they can kind of shoot on the road, they will win this series. kind of shoot. They don't like 46% shoot.
Well, the funny thing they did in Game 3 that helped turn the tides in their favor is what we had talked about before the series started, which is they just put Jalen Suggs on Donovan Mitchell, who's the best defender, and they said, well, we're going to put him on and see if that helps.
And good luck.
For some reason, Jamal Mosley thought, let's try him off the ball. I don't know why that was the case. But, yeah, the Cavs in Donovan Mitchell's run in Cleveland have broken the 100-point mark once in the playoffs. Once. Crazy. Really bad.
You can take a small guard out of a series.
You can. And if you want to disprove that, you could say it was the Knicks. Hey, the Knicks did beat the 76ers last night. Jalen Brunson had 47, a new Knicks record. But they only scored 97 points, too. It's not like they are these barn burners of games where Jalen Brunson is, doing what he did throughout the regular season. Now, again, 47 and 10. He was awesome. I'll have a hot take about Jalen Brunson we can talk about coming up in the second hour if we want.
Honestly, the 76ers are surprisingly flawed.
Well,
more flawed than I would have thought.
It's the 76ers. They're historically bad in the playoffs, always. It doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. They're a joke in the playoffs.
And nobody likes Nick Nurse.
Nobody likes Nick Nurse. Yeah, they were really bad again. They're bad executing late. I know Joel's not fully healthy. He had 27 and 10, but was not the dominant player that he needs to be for them to win.
And we can both agree the Bucks are toast?
The Bucks are toast.
Down 3-1 to the Pacers?
Down two Achilles. Two healthy Achilles between Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard, who did not play yesterday.
Which is too bad. And they already couldn't play defense, and they're playing against the Pacers. So
yeah, this run of Giannis with the Bucks might be very, very rapidly coming to an end.
All right, what's next?
Number 3, Jazz president Jim Olson chatted with Hans and Scotty on Friday and gave some insight into the Delta Center renovations.
Well, there's a lot of work that still has to be done, and a lot of just creation and innovation and strategy and planning. But what I will tell you is we do know we're going to master that fan experience in those sight lines, and that we're going to create something that hasn't been done before.
Pretty cool. And Jim's entire conversation, I thought, was really great on Friday on Hans and Scotty. Even though I don't want to give any pub to that show for a different reason, but that was a good conversation.
Coming up at 2:05, Bill Armstrong, general manager of the Utah Hockey Club, is going to be on with Hans and Scotty. If you want more hockey, Phil.
We can weigh in on the arena, but do you know I sent them an AI song on Friday that they refused to play?
Well, we played our AI songs on Friday and had a good time with it.
Yeah.
And you had another one?
Well, because I felt bad because Hans didn't react really well to his. He was not happy with it in a way that I really didn't anticipate. I mean, because you can like I make jokes about Hans not being as good as Merlin Olsen, but it's Merlin Olsen.
Yeah, right. Merlin's the best who's ever done it.
He's the best who's ever done it. He's like a living legend. I think that's actually part of what makes it funny. But he was like, he didn't like the Rock part in a sense that he didn't want Rock to get like a big head.
A big head.
Like Rock ain't there yet, that kind of thing. And so anyway, he didn't love it. So I did one about Lloyd that I thought was really funny.
You and Carl and Dave wrote a song.
We wrote a song about Lloyd, and somehow that didn't make it onto the show.
Didn't make the air.
I thought it still needed tweaking.
Oh, I did a new one.
Oh, okay.
You and Carl got together after the show and wrote a new one.
We jammed one out. Do you want to? We can play it, but we don't have to play it
in the second hour.
We don't have to play it now. We can play it in the second hour. But I'm kind of bent. I felt ignored. I was like, I was doing something to help the content of their show. I think it's really funny, but it's about Lloyd, so of course it's going to get buried, right?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm all in on hockey. I'm excited to hear this Bill Armstrong interview coming up at 2:00. I'm excited to see what they do at the Delta Center. But all these things that I think people are nitpicking over and worried about, like jerseys and like names, it's got an NHL team. I'm so excited to have them here. I can't wait to get to know the players better from a fan perspective, from a media perspective, see what type of role they're going to carve out for themselves in Utah, the team and the players and the coach and the GM. And we're already seeing it starting with Bill Armstrong coming up today at 2:05. Very cool.
All right. And I'm excited about the reno. The project sounds huge and awesome.
Just a cool $700 million plus. And then I want to see what it does to downtown. Certainly going to have a big effect on it.
Right now, there's a giant building across from the arena that is vacant, and that doesn't make any sense.
It needs to be bulldozed.
And the convention center is right there. I know there's some delicate stuff with the Japanese church, which I get that you got to navigate for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the convention center is right there. Connect it all. Make it really cool.
But you're right. There's that big vacant building that the Delta Center is facing.
That's just doing nothing.
Let's gut that thing. Not my money, but do something with it.
And the Park Place, which is incredibly convenient to have a parking lot that size right there. But, I mean, you could use that. And that's technically owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I think.
I don't know.
All right. Should we play the hand song going out? This is the hand, what is it called? Second Chances? All right, let's go ahead.
Got a story about a man named Hans. Used to play ball, had big dreams and plans. But he wasn't as good as his Uncle Merlin. Always felt like he was just a throw it in. Now his son Rock, he was just a throw it in. Now his son Rock, he's the real deal. Gonna take the field, show him how it feels. Hans had his time, but now it's Rock's turn. He's gonna make his mark. Let the world learn.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The 50 segment is brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows, Utah's premier door and window retailer, combining beauty and technology on doors and windows since 1993. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Peach Doors and Windows. I hate evaluating things at work. I like my job. Why do I have to ask for something negative? I don't know.
You've got a work feedback thing?
Yeah, I got a work feedback thing going on that I'm viciously overdue on.
Yeah, and they don't want you to say, everything's good. Like, we're having a great time.
But I mean, there's so many terrible things I can say about Lloyd, but I don't want to.
You don't want to just run Lloyd, and then they'll know it's you. Because you're the only one who seems to consistently have a problem with Lloyd.
I actually have zero problem with Lloyd. You know, man, I've known Lloyd for now 25 years.
Going back to your days at Sears.
And Lloyd does a good job. Honestly, like, through all the ups and downs of the radio business, things are good. Got a good show going, Ben. Working for a great company.
Yeah, we're happy.
Working
I'm
working with Lloyd and Nate is and all the way on up.
we're the
Truly
opposite of
great.
the Phoenix Suns right now.
Like, super supported too. I mean, one of these questions is like, what can we do to support you? I don't know. You guys are doing a pretty bang up job.
Oh,
honestly.
you know what? Honestly, can I tell you what to put in there? Wider parking spaces.
Oh,
Put it in
that's
there.
like my only complaint.
Put it in there. Put in wider parking spaces.
Wider parking spaces.
We should
would be
all
great.
get together, and every one of us in this complain about the size of the parking spaces downstairs.
And less reserved parking spaces
Yeah.
that don't get used.
Yeah. Sorry, LDSBC. Sorry, Business College. You guys are taking up more spots than you're worth.
I think we should just bump like the Des News.
Whatever it is. Yeah, whoever. Yeah. Only floor 2. Everyone on floor 2, we're on the second floor here, gets
Top-notch spots.
better spots. So that we should all complain about the size of the spots, because if everybody does it, they'll be like, we got a real problem downstairs.
I feel like they could sacrifice I wonder what it'd take. Sacrifice 15 spots to make every spot 6 inches wider.
Yeah, 6 inches wider on either side would really go a long way. That's what I would say for the parking spots.
Better support would be some wider spots. But even then, I compare it to at other points in my career, I'd have a list of so many things to complain about. You know where parking spots period would have gone? 50th. Now that's gone up to number 1.
Which is a good sign.
That's a really good sign.
It's a good sign. Yeah, right. Life's good. Hey, it's the opposite, like I said, of the Phoenix Suns, who, since getting eliminated last time, that game ended at 10:30, right? That was the late game for the Suns. There is an article about how Matt Ishbia is an absolute idiot and makes all the decisions by himself and doesn't know what he's doing. He's the owner of the Suns. Kevin Durant says Frank Vogel's a bad coach and runs the wrong offense and doesn't utilize Kevin Durant enough. Stephen A. Smith has a report out that Devin Booker's trying to get to the Knicks, and everyone knows Bradley Beal was awful and was absolutely embarrassed by Anthony Edwards last night, blowing by him for the huge dunk late in the fourth quarter that sealed the fate of the Phoenix Suns. I mean, that's 4 stories within 12 hours about what a disaster this team is. And it's exactly what I think Danny Ainge was afraid of with the Utah Jazz getting here, which is, all of a sudden we're expensive. And even if you've got a good young player, because Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell are not all that different. If you want to say Devin Booker's a better player, fine. If you think Donovan's better, fine. Whatever. But the fear is that you were going to get old and really sour quickly, and it was going to be really hard to get out of some of these players because you're not going to win a trade with Kevin Durant. You're probably going to get less back regardless, especially at this point. You're not going to get what you paid for him. I mean, you couldn't get Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and 4 draft picks for Kevin Durant right now. You truly can't trade Bradley Beal. He's got a no-trade clause still. He's not going to accept a trade elsewhere, and no one's going to take him. So that's unmovable. I mean, you're at the point where now you probably have to trade Devin Booker in the next 18 months, which is crazy to think of where they are, but none of them seem to like each other. No one wants to be in Phoenix anymore. And that situation is going to end up with a reputation of a bad owner who people aren't going to want to go play for. It's a disaster. You can say the Jazz are in a bad spot. I get it. The Jazz are not in a prime spot in the NBA. They are in the bottom third of positions in the NBA as far as teams trying to compete and how to get back there. But it could be a lot worse.
You know what's funny, though? To connect our conversations, if I were James Jones submitting my critique, be like, well, he's not Robert Sarver. Have you ever seen the baseball Simpsons where he throws, who is it, Don Mattingly? Mr. Burns throws Don Mattingly off the team because he told him to shave his sideburns, and Mattingly shaves his sideburns all the way up his head.
Yeah.
And Mr. Burns still yells at him and says, Mattingly, I told you to shave those sideburns. Go home. You're off the team. And then you remember Mattingly's line on the way out?
Better than Steinbrenner.
At least he's not Steinbrenner. Yeah, better than Steinbrenner. I think you're right.
Yep.
So, yeah, James Jones is like, this guy's a buffoon, but I'm just going to write better than Sarver.
You know what? I kind of wonder if Sarver let James Jones do his job, and James Jones would prefer to do that. Because I think Matt Ishbia thinks he's better at the job than everybody. Because he played college basketball at Michigan State.
And you've had that observation about these young hotshot owners who come in and we're like, these people in this business have been doing it wrong forever. Now they're going to get the gift of my knowledge.
By the way, and here's what I will do. I will credit Ryan Smith. Because look, what I will say about Ryan Smith from a business perspective is he's a doer. He just gets things done. Look what he's done with this NHL team. He rushes it, he pushes it through, and he gets the results that he's looking for. He has shown a lot of patience with this basketball team because he did make rush moves by going out and getting Danny Ainge and bringing Danny in, and he forced that to happen. And then you know what he did? He gave Danny the keys to the car and has not interfered.
No.
He has not forced bad trades. He has not forced the Jazz to do things that Danny Ainge wasn't in control of. This team looks like what Danny Ainge wants it to look like right now.
Yep.
Because I think if you would have let Ryan Smith make all the decisions, it would look a lot differently. And I think he's doing the right thing by backing off and letting an expert in Danny Ainge build this team. Now, Danny's got a hit. Justin Zanuck's got a hit on these draft picks. They've got to make the right trades to rebuild this thing. That's what they bet on. But Ryan Smith hasn't taken his ethos with the rest of his life, which is 110% in, make moves, be aggressive. The Jazz have been really patient, and you hope it pays off. But credit to him where a lot of other owners have come in and messed it up. I don't think you've seen that from Ryan Smith.
All right, stay tuned. We will have more coming up next. It is Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to go see Aerosmith at Delta Center on November 24th. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. You going to go see Aerosmith, Ben?
Sure.
I'd go see Aerosmith.
Yeah. Got no problem with that.
That might be dated. I think we did Aerosmith tickets. I think this week's supposed to be Pitbull, actually.
Oh, Pitbull.
We'll do them together.
Aerosmith and Pitbull.
Yeah.
Pitbull,
What a combo.
The bald guy?
Yeah.
What's-
The NBA playoffs guy.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, playoffs guy.
So he's, where's he playing? USANA? Or I guess America First, right?
He's playing at, Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater.
Utah First Credit Union. Jeez. Multiple misses in one segment. Apologies.
Everything's rapidly changing in our beautiful town.
Yeah, sponsorship. Admittedly, sponsorships are tough to keep up with.
We're
sometimes.
growing.
I'm still getting used to I should be doing credit union and bank reads for things, but I'm still getting used to the Southtown Expo Center and its new title.
Yeah, right. No, we're rapidly changing, and it's only just beginning. I'm fascinated by what type of interest hockey's going to generate in our town from a sponsorship standpoint, from an economic impact standpoint.
So on
who's
that-
going to want to be a part of it?
On that note, did you hear Jim say that he believes that the overlap in the fan bases is only about 10%?
Yes.
Between hockey and basketball? That stood out to me, and I'm sure they've done their research, so I'm not. But that seemed low.
And
to
I would
me.
say at the moment, yes, that's probably accurate. At the moment. Once it became a realization that actually was going to happen, I bet you that number would spike dramatically. I mean, from my personal experience.
See, I actually think it's a really good thing that number is low.
Oh, I agree with you.
Like
yeah, no,
that-
it's not a bad thing that you were going to get that much interest if only 10% of the
Because
fan base
overlap is going to be rough because nobody can afford to buy 82 tickets.
I'm not so sure I agree with that.
Your average, maybe you are, Ben, but I don't know what your investment portfolio is looking. Called Trajan, Trajan. But I would say very few people can buy 82 tickets. I'm not talking about corporations. I'm talking
Well, that's
about
the thing, but that's the problem. That is who buys tickets. This idea that the average fan is the one that they're talking to ever, it's not. Like, season ticket holders are not, and there are examples of our listeners. I know people who have season tickets, and they'll split them with somebody, and I'll take 20 games, and you can take 20 games, et cetera, et cetera. There are those fans. So many season ticket holders are corporate sponsorships or whatever, corporations buying 6 seats in a row, 8 seats in a row, so they can wine and dine people and take them out or give them out to their company as a benefit, whatever they want to do. I think that type of overlap is going to be enormous. There's going to be a lot of people who say, yeah, it's great. There's not a Jazz game in town on a Tuesday. There's a hockey game, though, so we're going to go to that. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I think it's a good news that number's low. I think it's more likelihood of success with a lower number because you don't want to take there is a fear of taking a bite out of the other. Again, I used Larry Miller as an example. He was concerned at the time that RSL would take a bite out of the Jazz. Now, I don't think it did.
At all?
But that was a concern at the time. And it's a concern because it can happen. I mean, why did they only have 10 fans in Phoenix? Because there's 5 other professional teams to root for. I mean,
the Hawks don't sell tickets.
Ultimately, the Coyotes were the one that had I'm thinking of Old Man in the Sea now, the carcass of the fish.
Uh-huh.
That was because everything else fed off of it, right? Arizona State is a casualty. Used to be the biggest thing in town, and then the Suns came, and then the
Atlanta
Cardinals
hockey
came,
team
and
that
then
has struggled.
Yeah, right.
The Atlanta Hawks don't sell tickets. The Detroit Pistons don't sell tickets. New Orleans doesn't sell tickets.
Yeah,
the
right.
Pelicans. There's too much else going on.
There's other things, other tickets to buy. And
LSU baseball is more important than the Pelicans.
I do think that's a risk. Now, maybe I'm like the great Larry Miller, and hey, that's not a problem, and that's good for everybody. But certainly, if you're owned by the same person, you want to create a new fan base, so to speak, and don't necessarily want it just being Jazz fans who decide to buy 5 Jazz games and 5 hockey games instead of 10 Jazz games. I do think there are more of those fans than you're giving it credit, but I understand your point.
I think absolutely that there are, and there are going to be fans who say, "No, we're going to do hockey next year. We're not going to do basketball."
Right.
Especially because no one's expecting the Jazz to be great next season, and rightfully so. I don't think the Jazz are going to be great next season. So there are going to be fans who say, "Hey, this year, Let's invest in the one sport because that's what we have in our budget. That absolutely exists. They're going to sell out both. Now maybe the Jazz's sellout streak of 270 plus straight games gets snapped this year. It might.
I don't 100% believe that streak is still intact anyway. But yeah, I mean,
everything, all their numbers. I mean, we got an update saying it is.
I know.
All the tickets have been sold.
No. But you also agree with me.
Well, I mean, there's not a butt in every seat. Does that mean every ticket is not sold?
Right.
I don't think the Jazz are lying to us.
Oh, no. I'm not implying that they're lying. Every single sports athlete does this. Remember when BYU had like 5 people in the stands for, there were a number of those games you can pick between some of those November games that were just rough, right? And there's like probably 15, 20,000 people in the stands, and you look at the thing and it says 50,000. The people just didn't come.
Sure. But the tickets are sold, which is ultimately is probably what they care
Or
about.
given out or whatever.
Whatever you got to do. Fine. Yeah, either way.
But yeah, the arena hasn't been 100% packed for that many games.
So I could see the Jazz streak actually being broken. First time in over 270 games. Now, maybe I'm wrong. There is not going to be an available hockey ticket for 2 years.
And that's the newness factor. The Jazz didn't sell out every game during the last rebuild. I never thought it was. I'm surprised. I guess my point is I'm surprised that's even still going because it didn't fall off entirely during the last rebuild. But yeah, it was down to 15,000, 16,000 fans.
Yeah.
That's inevitable, I think, when they're not good. But anyway, the hockey thing, the newness, they can suck for 2-3 years and they'll still draw.
And they will. I'm not saying they're going to suck. They're going to be good. I mean, they're a team on the rise. I'm excited to get to know some of this free agency and what's going to happen here with.
It would be helpful for them getting solid here if they were good, but I don't think they have to be good for a couple of years.
But it seems like they're trending in that direction as long as they don't mess it up themselves.
Well, they're going to have to sign a defenseman.
At least one.
At least one.
Our guy Liam O'Brien, Spicy Tuna, is a free agent. So probably smart of him to go out there and become a fan favorite really quickly. That
get
was probably
Spicy back.
Pretty good marketing for him. And we'll see. I'm sure Bill Armstrong will talk about that coming up today at 2 o'clock on Hans and Scotty, the GM for the Coyotes.
You need a personality.
But, yeah, I mean, I will be curious what the overlap is. I don't think it's going to be an issue in the immediate future. Maybe 5 years down the road, if the Jazz never figure it out, if the Jazz don't come back from this rebuild and they end up turning into one of the worst teams in the NBA, which the fan base hasn't traditionally allowed that, but we have thrown a wild card into that. That the fan base has another option now for the first time. So maybe the fan base would present some apathy towards the Jazz that they've never shown before because it was, with all due respect to everybody else, the best show in town.
Yeah.
It was the best show in town consistently. And maybe they would lose that if a hockey team comes in and plays well and performs well and is in the Stanley Cup playoffs and everyone says, well, that's where we want all of our money to go, and the Jazz are old news. We'll see. The nice thing for the Jazz...
That's kind of not how hockey's set up, though. You know what I mean?
In what way?
In the collective bargaining way. Like, you're going to have a set expense for hockey. You know what I mean? Like a...
Oh, no, I don't. I mean from a fan base where the fan is spending
Investing?
their money, not where the
excuse
team
me.
is spending
No,
their
I
money.
misunderstood. Apologize.
No, man. I saw, I can't remember if I was reading an article in The Athletic or what I was reading over the weekend. Have you seen the result of the lockout for the owners since 2011? We probably don't remember it a ton here because we didn't have a hockey team and we were also dealing with the Jazz lockout.
Yeah.
This is a super extended lockout, right?
A year and a half.
Gary Bettman absolutely just said, we're not coming back until the players meet all
They went
the
to the mat.
demands
Yeah.
of the owners. There's been a $4.5 billion transfer of wealth from the players to the owners.
Yeah, I
in
bet
a
there
decade.
has been.
In a decade. It's $450 million a year. That's unreal how bitter that fight must have been for the players to lose all of that in a decade.
Well,
to shift towards the ownership.
If you listen to the owner's argument, they would have said, well, the reason we did that is because there wouldn't be a league.
Yeah, the league was going to go out of business.
If we didn't have that transfer of wealth, because we can't afford to just lose money all the time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not, I don't know.
Look at arena football in its first run when Hans was playing for arena football. Hans will tell you, he made a nice living. Not NFL nice, but like made a really nice living. But the truth is the business model was flawed because they couldn't afford to pay the players like that because they didn't make enough dough. And not that the NHL is the Arena League, I mean, way more established than that, obviously. But on the trajectory that they were going, they would have told you, like, it's not sustainable.
It's unsustainable.
So, I don't know. It sounds so vicious when you put it that way. Like, what was it?
$4.5 billion.
Transfer of wealth to already rich people. Well, it's not really that simple.
Again, you
It's
could,
not
they could have gone under. Right. They may have needed that money to keep the league.
To get new arenas and to be able to invest in the franchise and to hire people and do all those sorts of things.
And that hockey was losing its TV fan base and all these things. It was having a very serious issue. It was not what it had been in the 90s in its heyday. You know, they needed something dramatic. It's why Gary Bettman was probably willing to
do it.
Sit on it for a year and a half.
And he saw he came from the NBA. And he came from old school NBA because he's been the hockey commissioner forever now. But he saw how it was, and he saw the direction it was going, and he didn't think that his sport could survive that. Maybe he was wrong. I mean, the NBA has certainly survived.
Regardless, I think being an owner in the NHL is not a bad business, actually.
No, it's not.
I love their CBA. It's an owner-friendly league compared to the other leagues. Now, look, you'd rather own the NFL because you print money, and all these teams are doing well, but it's a good league to be in if you're an owner. So I'll be curious. We kind of got sidetracked by the idea of how you spend money in the NHL.
Apologies, that's my fault.
It's fine. You've got your $98 million you're going to spend on your salary, and then whatever it costs for operations to run, to fly your team around.
And what's the basement? It's like not that. It's like I'd have to look.
No, it's high.
Like 75 or 80.
Yeah,
or
it's
something
high.
Like the variance of.
You have to spend your money.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to spend your money, and Ryan Smith has showed a willingness to want to spend the money. Did you know? This is what I heard. Ryan Smith had to pay outstanding hotel bills from the old owner.
That's
for the
hilarious.
Because one of the things, there was this meeting, and this is talked about publicly, was that the players said, Ryan went down there and met with whatever the 80 people that are involved in this. You've got 50 players signed to contracts. You've got 23 that are on your main roster, 20 that suit up every night. But there was some 70 players. And he said, what can I do for you? And the two things that the players said, we want better operations for our wives. We want our wives to feel more comfortable, be taken care of better at games. He said, done. And then he said, what else? And the player said, we want better hotel rooms when we're on the road. And he said, you're staying where the Jazz are staying, which is 5-star hotels everywhere you go. He said, you're going to stay at NBA quality. That's what we're going to do. That's just going to be the deal going forward, and that's not what they had been doing.
That's not in the NHL CBA? Because that's in the NBA CBA.
Yeah, it is. Apparently it is not.
Oh, man, they'd be staying at the Days Inn if I owned the team.
And apparently some of the bills were unpaid, which is how bad Alex Morella was as an owner. Allegedly, some of those hotel bills had not been paid. Just crazy. You can't pay the hotel bill for your team.
So I tell you guys there was a continental breakfast? You're going to love this place.
I need you guys to skip the breakfast.
I got two words for you. The best Western. Yeah.
Guys, we're gonna have some Dunkin' Donuts coffee at the arena. Don't eat at the hotel. We haven't paid for the breakfast for you guys. We didn't pick up that option.
I tell you a story about my buddy Keenan, who played college basketball in Indiana and then really tried hard to keep the professional basketball dream alive for a long time. And I give him credit because he never got over the hump, but he really tried to make it happen. And he played in the old ABA. I'm talking like mid-aughts ABA. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if the ABA is still around.
I don't think so.
Like he had a franchise close up on him in the middle of the night. Like they had a game.
Yep.
Came back to the hotel. He goes back down, to the front desk in the morning, and they say, the owner left, and you owe us money for the hotel room. And he was like, wait, what?
You're not leaving.
Wait, what? And then, the owner just vanished into thin air. I still don't think he got paid for, I think he's got an outstanding whatever, several $100,000, whatever, for, he was owed. And the owner was just like, gone.
And how often that does happen.
In these minor leagues?
I mean, we remember.
It happens all the time.
Michelle Bodkin, the
Stallions.
Alliance of American Football. Was,
that whole league disappeared.
Yeah, overnight. Yeah, really quickly.
Oh, man, I've seen so many of those. Do you remember the indoor football league that was going to do everything via vote?
Uh-huh. Absolutely. I remember them coming through. I remember talking to the GM. Absolutely.
That was doomed to failure.
You could get on your app and you could pick the play on the app. The fans would vote on the app. Yeah, it's difficult.
The original run of the Stars was kind of a disaster down in Utah County.
Whose head coach was?
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Young?
Kevin Young. Well, I don't know about the on the court. I'm more talking about the off the court.
Yeah.
Hiring a fake Michael Jordan to set up some sort of phantom one-on-one with Brian Russell during a snowstorm might have been the most offensive marketing campaign in history.
It was wild. Well, while we're talking business, maybe we should save this for the next segment, though I do want to talk some playoffs. How about what we had teased at last week actually coming through? Amazon Prime Video, buying the NBA. Going to have conference finals games on Amazon Prime streaming. Going to have a big selection of the regular season games as well available on Amazon Prime. If you've got it, you're going to be able to watch those. I'll be curious if they start changing prices there. But a lot of those games, that's how you're going to have to watch them now.
Do you think this is a new package, or is this somehow leveraging because ESPN and TNT aren't coming to the table?
Well, ESPN also bought in. So
they?
ESPN is these deals are rumored to be at least a decade and maybe up to 15 years. So this could take you up through about 2040. ESPN bought a package, so the NBA is going to remain on ESPN. Now it's going to move to Amazon Prime as well. And the question is, who gets the third bite at the apple? Because the NBA wants to have 3 partners. TNT has the right of first refusal. It's Warner Bros. Who owns TNT. So they've got an opportunity. It sounds like it'll probably be fewer games if TNT gets it. But NBC is also preparing to come and make a big push because the NBC wants the NBA back on their airwaves. And they're trying to figure out how to do that. Now, the league apparently also may do 4 providers where NBC will have some games, TNT will have some games.
See, that's creating new packages. That's kind of what I was getting at.
That's the question. Do you end up getting more games? But this is a big chunk of games that are, I think, you're used to seeing on TNT already moving over to Amazon.
Because when football did it and created Thursday Night Football or whatever, that was new. That was a new package. That wasn't coming from an older one. So that'll be interesting. I don't know. I've been considering recently getting rid of Amazon Prime, so maybe that will
change your ways. Yeah.
What really needs to happen is Amazon needs to pick up the whole thing. And we got to get rid of Bally Sports and all this stuff and just have Amazon have every NBA game all the time. Why not?
And that's going to be your home of the NBA.
Except for the nationally televised games you want to put on ESPN. That's going to be it. I more mean Amazon needs to replace the regional network, not necessarily replace the national broadcast. I bet that's the
end game?
That's the fine line the NBA is walking, right? Is what do we do to solve our regional sports network problem, but not take a bite out of our national broadcast cash cow? Right?
Yep. ESPN's expected to decrease from 100 games to close to 80.
Yeah.
Making space for third rights holders like Prime Video.
So it is taking a bite out of ESPN.
Out of ESPN. So they're on board, but not as heavily.
So they probably were not going to invest like they have before. So there's the answer. It's probably a little bit in the middle of what we're talking about. They created a little bit new, but the mouse probably didn't have the dough, so they took a little away from the mouse. Sounds like they've taken a little bit away from the rabbit, too.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, the rabbit?
The rabbit, yeah. The mouse and the rabbit. That's good.
God,
I might have gone Animaniacs, but yeah, rabbit's good.
But who's the most iconic? I mean, Mickey certainly is not my favorite Disney character.
Oh, he's the most famous cartoon character of all time.
Right. Bugs has got to be second, right?
Yeah. More than the Animaniacs. More than
Much
Pinky
more,
in the Brain.
Much more than the Animaniacs. I mean, I always thought Daffy was pretty hilarious, but...
Yeah, I like Daffy.
But Bugs seems to be the icon, you know what I mean?
Sarah, do you know Animaniacs before your time? She doesn't know it. That was pretty iconic for us.
It was a cartoon. It aired in the mornings when you had to wake up to watch cartoons and you had like one option. Not that Animaniacs is bad.
Bugs Bunny and stuff like that is, but
Warner Brothers tried to re-engage with youth watching cartoons with the Animaniacs, and they had this whole series. It was pretty goofy.
And it was fine,
but
fine. I don't know if it reinvented children's television.
No, it didn't.
Certainly is no Bluey.
It's no Bluey.
Not even close.
Nope.
You watched the new one?
I have it. The Sign?
No,
there's
another
new one.
Yeah, there's another new one.
Man, I need
it was
to catch
surprise. Everybody had a real emotional reaction to The Sign.
I know. I need to watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
Surprise is pretty good, though. You get to see Bluey as an adult briefly.
Oh, okay. Spoiler. Let's talk some NBA playoffs
Well, it
next.
doesn't really have anything to. Well, it kind of does.
I want you to tell me if I have too hot of a take coming up next.
Oh man, a scorcher, I'm sure. Stay tuned. 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson
1, 2, 3, move it.
on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you about the Hercules Hero of the Week. Nominate the sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union. Ben, I have my flame retardant clothing on now. I have my face shield. I'm prepared for a real scorcher take based on your tease.
Okay. I was born in 1986. I fell in love with the NBA in the mid-90s. Lot of Knicks games in my life growing up. A lot of Knicks Pacers, a lot of Knicks Bulls, a lot of Madison Square Garden. Everybody, you are the exception, seems to have some affinity at least for the idea that the NBA is better when the New York Knicks are a good team. In my lifetime, I think Jalen Brunson's the best New York Knick I've ever seen.
Better. He's not better than Patrick Ewing.
I think he might be.
He's not.
I think he might be better than Patrick Ewing.
Oh,
Why? What did Patrick Ewing ever do that puts him in this list? Like, Patrick Ewing's the worst 90s players among the 90s players. Like, he's right there with Reggie Miller among, like, the guys we talk about made all-star games and never got anywhere near the promised land.
Because Patrick Ewing is a Hall of Famer and was a dream teamer, and Jalen Brunson is not.
Okay, again, he was like the fourth best center of that group of players, and I get it.
Brunson's got a long way to go until he's better than Patrick
I'm
Ewing.
not saying he's got a better resume. He's never going to have a better career. Last night, yesterday, what we've seen from Jalen Brunson this year is better than anything. And again, I'm not going to pretend when I was 10 years old I was breaking down the NBA with a critical eye the way I do now. I think Jalen Brunson's a better Knick than Patrick Ewing is. I think his season this year, what he's doing now, is better than what Patrick Ewing ever did. And I know it's better than what Carmelo ever did.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to defend Carmelo. But Carmelo is Jalen Brunson in a sense. Well, if you're the guy who has the ball in his hands for the whole time on a crappy team, well, your stats are going to be pretty good.
Okay.
Bradley Beal's stats were really good.
The Knicks are more than a crappy team.
Yeah.
They're about to eliminate, it looks like, maybe this falls apart, and the Knicks have been known to lose some of these things in the past, to eliminate Joel Embiid, who's playing at an MVP level. I mean, did win the MVP 2 years ago, and I guess he won it last year. Not 2 years ago. He won it last year. He's the reigning MVP right now and was better this year. Now, I know he's been hurt. I know he's coming back from injury. I know he's dealing with Bell's palsy. There's a lot of issues that he's dealing with right now.
Ben, the Sixers shot 35%.
Yeah, the Knicks are good.
They're a super flawed team.
The Knicks are good. The Knicks defense is elite. OG Anunoby's great. And you've got a leader right now in Jalen Brunson who is setting Knicks records. Last night, 47 points, the most ever by a Knicks player in a playoff game.
He took 34 shots.
Fine.
Okay.
He scored 47 points in a game they had to win. In a game that they scored under
I know.
100. This is a Knicks.
Exactly.
This is a 90s Knicks game, and he's still setting records doing it. It's unbelievable.
Who was it? Was it Trevor Booker who said about Ennis? When Ennis came back around and played the Jazz with Oklahoma City, and Booker said Ennis got his stats and took the L as usual.
Yeah.
I mean, I
The
know they
difference
didn't.
is
I know they didn't
take
lose,
the L.
but they scored 97 points. So you took 34 shots and scored 47 points, and your team still didn't play well offensively. What does that tell you?
That you needed that from that guy.
No, that you
47
needed more
points on
from-
34 shots is not bad.
Maybe if you got other guys more shots,
He got 10 assists.
you would have scored
He had 10
120
assists in
points.
the game.
An assist isn't what it used to be, and you
He
know
had
that too.
10 assists in the game, meaning he accounted for at least 67 of their 94
Yes,
points.
thank you for describing usage to me. But I don't think high usage equates to good player. I don't buy into that.
Oh, of course not. No, there's no There's no correlation that just using otherwise Al Jefferson would have been the best player in the NBA.
Yes.
Super high usage. The ability to do it, though, and have your team win games is important.
Game. Where are the Knicks going? Nowhere.
Well, I think they're going to beat the Pacers in the next round, and they're going to go to the conference finals.
Yeah, and the Jazz beat Golden State after Golden State had beat Dallas. Where was that Jazz team going? Nowhere.
Well,
they lost to the Spurs.
If the argument is yes, you're not going to win a title.
No,
correct. They're
you're
not
not
going to win a title.
What's the point?
Okay, so guess what? Guess who else never won a title? Patrick Ewing. So what was the point of his whole career? What's the point of 11 All-Star games and 7 All-NBA teams and 3 All-Defensive teams? What's the point? Who cares?
Comparing Jalen Brunson to Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
And I find that ridiculous. Jalen Brunson hasn't done anything, and Patrick Ewing
what did Patrick do?
Is a Hall of Famer. He had a Hall of Fame career.
Great. Good for him. He acquired all these stats over a long period of time, and under your definition, never did anything. He never did anything.
He's a top 10 player in the league for a very long time. You can't say that about Jalen Brunson.
Right now has been a top 10 player this year. He's going to be All-NBA first team.
That's nothing. That's media voting. That same media
in worst case, he's going to be All-NBA second team, which is the definition of the top 10 players in the NBA.
The media thought Ben Simmons was good.
Especially this year, because, the media voted for
They thought
Patrick
Ben
Ewing to
Simmons
get into
was
the Hall
good.
of Fame. That's who gets him into the Hall of Fame.
I'm not even that big a Patrick Ewing fan. I just find the comparison between he and Jalen Brunson ridiculous.
This year, at their peak, Jalen Brunson is as good, if not better, than anything Patrick Ewing ever did. I think Jalen Brunson is as good a Knick as I've ever seen in my life.
This is such a frustrating argument. But Jalen Brunson is not good enough to play like this on a contending team.
What did Ewing ever did? He never contended.
He contended. Absolutely
he was never
contended. You mentioned all those series in the mid-'90s with the Pacers and the Bulls.
They never contended.
They absolutely contended.
They never won anything. They made it to the finals once.
They did?
Made it to when he was washed, right?
How many has Jalen Brunson made it to?
He has not made it to the finals.
No, he has not.
You're right. He is not. Now, Ewing was not the best player on those finals teams either. By the time the Knicks made it, when Ewing was ancient, he was not the best player on those teams.
And if the Knicks make it now to the finals, it will be because Jalen Brunson isn't the best player on the team.
Patrick Ewing, I'm trying to see if all of these came with the Knicks. He played 140 playoff games for the Knicks, 139 playoff games. He had 2 40-point games. Jalen Brunson has played, let's see.
Comparing offensive stats.
20 games for the Knicks. He has 2 40-point games already in the playoffs.
Those offensive stats are not the same. They don't mean the same thing. The eras are totally different. We see these
But look at the score last night. 96 to 92, 97,
exactly
92.
My point. So you score 47 points and your team can only muster 97. That does not equate success.
It translates exactly to what the Knicks used to do in the 90s.
That does not equate good.
Jalen Brunson in 15 games as a Knick in the postseason, 29 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds.
Ben, if I just decided
he's going to have 2 playoff series wins, 1 playoff series loss at the end of this.
If I just decided to, whatever the airtime is of our show is equivalent to Jalen Brunson's usage, if I just talked that whole time and then we ended the show and I said, "God, man, we crushed that. Did you hear how much I talked?" That's not. That is not.
But if we were the top show in the ratings, everyone would say, "Great, talk more."
That's not how a team works.
It doesn't matter. If it wins, it doesn't matter. They are winning right now. They are beating the Joel Embiid led Philadelphia 76ers,
which apparently is not that hard to do.
Joel Embiid was the MVP last year and is playing better this year than he was last year.
And where did they go in the playoffs last year?
He got hurt. Again, he got hurt. He didn't play most of the games in the playoffs last year, and they got eliminated.
Come on. Just because 47 points. Let's have a little nuance. We're smarter than that.
No, that is the thing. This is the nuance, right? This is the idea that we can flush our old ideas of what these players were. This is the idea that, hey, yes, I recognize that Patrick Ewing has this resume, and we can look at him and not remember missing layups against the Indiana Pacers in the final seconds of a game that you needed to win and it ending your playoff series. Like all the moments that you choked Patrick Ewing because you did as a Knick and you guys never reached the potential that you were supposed to when David Stern pulled a frozen envelope out of the hopper to make sure that the Knicks got the number 1 overall pick so they could draft you because you were supposed to transform this team that needed to be transformed in the 90s, and you were fine. You were relevant. You were never great. And Jalen Brunson's doing exactly the same thing with this Knicks team that Patrick Ewing did, and he's doing it at a higher level already.
He's not either. By the way, it was just an excuse to crap on Patrick Ewing?
I'm saying...
Like, your whole argument has been about that guy sucked, not about Jalen Brunson being good.
Jalen Brunson is great. Jalen Brunson is playing at an insanely high level right now. And he's really fun to watch.
Whose resume is... Well, let me ask it to you this way. Do you think Trae Young's good?
Trae Young is fine.
Do you think that the Jazz would go anywhere if they made a move for Trae Young?
Like, they're not going to win a title, no.
Trae Young has a better resume than Jalen Brunson. There are a lot of people out there that would argue that Trae Young is better than Jalen Brunson. That is not how you win in the NBA.
They would be wrong. They would be wrong. Trae Young right now is not better than Jalen Brunson, and I don't know if Trae Young at his best has ever been as good as Jalen Brunson is right now.
Gone to an Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm sure he scored 40 points in a playoff game.
And he beat the Knicks.
And he beat the Knicks.
Yeah, he did. No, that was pre-Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson was still in Dallas there. I'm just saying, Jalen Brunson is playing at a level right now that has surpassed Carmelo Anthony in New York. And New York is prone, and you talk about this a lot, with the Cowboys and the Knicks for overrating their teams and overrating their players. And Patrick Ewing is somebody who has been overrated historically because of who he has been. I'm saying, you're right. The Knicks have historically underachieved in my entire lifetime. And it is partly because we look at who their players are and we have elevated them to standards that they never actually reached. Jalen Brunson is reaching the level of superstar right now playing for the Knicks, and I think he's in the conversation for the best Knick I've ever seen. And probably as good as Patrick Ewing was. And I get Pat was 7 feet tall, and I get he had his little mid-range jump shot, and I get he blocked some shots, and he was gregarious. Jalen Brunson's better. I will take Jalen Brunson.
Well, you're crazy.
Okay, and so it was too hard of a take for you.
It's a ridiculous discussion anyway. And I don't believe in what's the there's a saying for it, right? Where you think what's going on right now is the best it's ever been.
Or worst it's ever been.
And so many people fall into that.
Absolutely. And you know what? I don't think I'm prone to falling into it. I don't think I fall into it that badly.
Histrionics? Is that what it is? Something like that. Where you think every moment is making history?
Yes, or that every wave that comes at you is the biggest we've ever
seen. Just a pivotal
the Hornets that were coming during
moment.
The pandemic were going to end the world.
Right.
Killer Hornets or whatever they were called.
You think whatever you're watching at the moment, like this is the greatest game ever played.
I get it. I totally understand that is a thing. And I generally don't feel like I do that at a bad level. But I can look back and say, hey, man, I remember these Knicks teams in the 90s always underachieving. They never reached what they were supposed to reach. They never got where they were supposed to get. This Knicks team is doing the exact opposite. A lot of people did not think they were going to beat the 76ers once Joel got healthy and had that team unbeaten over the final 8 games of the regular season. And Jalen Brunson is putting an end to that by himself, and it's unbelievable. So I'm enjoying the ride. And I'm going to ride with this idea.
But you just told me his team was so good, he doesn't have to do it by himself.
I didn't say that.
Like he's just doing it by himself. Well,
no, I said it's fine that his usage is high if you're winning games. If that's what it takes to win, good for you. You're winning games at this high of a level.
More than one way to win a game.
There are.
And it isn't that high a level. We're talking about the NBA first round.
He's beating a team that had Joel been healthy would have been the 2nd seed, and he's doing it as a guard, which we don't see a whole lot. A small guard is beating this team that has a superstar center and the reigning MVP. Because he has elevated his game to another level, and it's a level that I've never seen another New York Knick reach. That's my argument. That's my take.
35%. 35%. So if you want to argue to me that the Knicks, that's what Philadelphia shot. So if you want to argue to me that the Knicks won the game over Philly because they played good defense, well, I'd listen to that. I'd say the good defense had way more to do with that win than Jalen Brunson's 47.
I think they are both very important. Obviously, you have to be able to get stops. But the 76ers were getting stops also. The one guy they couldn't figure out was Jalen Brunson, who shot 53% from the floor en route to 47 points. 10 assists, 1 turnover. Awesome. Absolute mega efficiency on that front.
And their team had a 17-point quarter and a 20-point quarter.
It's fine, right?
No, it's not fine.
It's really hard to score in the playoffs.
Oh,
every game. Look at every game. Look at every
it.
game. Look at the score of every playoff game right now. Nobody's breaking 120. Nobody's breaking 120 points. The league is awesome in the playoffs. Everybody plays defense. It's impossible to score.
35. The defense has more to do with that win than Jalen Brunson. If the Sixers shot 40%, they win.
And they didn't.
That has nothing to do with Jalen Brunson.
If Jalen Brunson,
zero to do with
Jalen Brunson had shot 32 times instead of 34,
they win by 10.
Philadelphia wins.
You don't
he
know.
shot 18 of 34. He was over 500.
You don't know
he
what
was
happens.
Awesome.
It does the gall to take 34 shots in a game.
They needed it.
You better be.
Who else are they going to give the ball to? Who else is going to take that many shots?
Exactly
Josh Hart?
my point. The only time the Knicks are going to go anywhere ever is if they get
Josh
a better
Hart was
player.
0 of 7.
If they get a better player than Jalen Brunson.
Dante DiVincenzo was 3 of 11.
How many of those bozos would start?
Precious Achiuwa was 0 of 5.
How many of those bozos would start for the Celtics?
Josh Hart.
No.
Josh Hart might be their starting two. No, I guess they'd probably go with Drew Holiday. Derek White's been an all-star this year. Jalen Brunson's better than both of those guys right now.
He's the only one on the team who's good enough to have the ball.
How is this an argument? How is this not an argument for Jalen Brunson being awesome? Jalen Brunson, they don't have another starter who would start right now for the Celtics, and he's about to beat the 76ers by himself.
High usage does not equate good. Do I need to come back to that?
But
does
he
not
is
equate
good.
winning.
He has to do this. He could do less on a better team, and they would still be really good.
He's Trae Young, and you're talking yourself into he's a Hall of Famer.
He did less with the Mavericks, and they beat the Jazz. He did less with the Mavericks, and they beat the Jazz next to Luka. He can play a different role.
That had more to do with the Jazz than it did him.
Oh, I mean, he was awesome in that series against the Jazz. He was absolutely incredible in that series against the Jazz.
He was better than Donovan Mitchell, yes.
Right, exactly. He was the best player in that series.
But that's the point. It was more about the Jazz than him, the Jazz failing.
Jalen Brunson in that series against the Jazz, 28 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 48% from the floor, took 21 shots a game. He's playing at an all-star and probably borderline superstar level right now, which I don't remember Patrick Ewing doing a whole lot.
Good luck.
Especially not in the playoffs.
Good luck.
Well, they're going to go to the conference finals.
Well, I don't think it's guaranteed they beat the Pacers. I can't believe you're buying the Knicks Kool-Aid. I think you're buying wholesale into the Knicks. What am I, on ESPN? Sitting there telling me how great the Knicks are every year. Yeah, I bet you love the Cowboys too.
He's going to go to the conference finals as the best player on that team.
Stay tuned. More next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two niggas on the airways, talking sports. They got him made Jakes and also loves his tie guy. Ben's got style with his scarves. Oh my.
Jake and Ben. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, quick retraction. Jimmy Robinson's right on Twitter. Pat Ewing in 94 did take the Knicks to the finals when Jordan stepped away to deal with baseball or gambling or something, whatever he was doing, and got beat up by Hakeem in the finals. They go to Game 7, though, but the Knicks did get to the finals, so credit Patrick Ewing there. Something that I don't see Jalen doing by himself.
Yeah, no. By the way, this segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows, Utah's premier door and window retailer, combining beauty and technology on doors and windows since 1993. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255, Peach Doors and Windows. That is the Jake and Ben theme song.
That was
that we
written
came up last week.
That was Carl, or that was
Well, Dave and I wrote it, and then Carl performed.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys wrote that.
He was pretty good.
You were just, while everyone else was dealing with hockey and the end of the Jazz season, we scratched out some studio time.
Yeah. We had the Dreamcoats theme song. We had the Hants song.
Oh, I forgot about the Dreamcoats theme song. What was that one called? Dream on Ice?
Dream on Ice.
Dream on Ice. Can we get a sample? Can you just get a little sample of Dream on Ice, the theme song for the Utah Dreamcoats, the upcoming hockey team that we have?
Slapshot, hard and fast, with a team that's gonna last. Dreamcoats on the ice, we bring the heat. Don't think twice.
I just needed a taste. Pretty good. But there's more?
Well, see, we did another one. We worked up another one about Lloyd.
Okay.
That I sent to those guys. I was trying to give them some funny content, and I felt bad that Hans was a little mad about the one we did for him. So I thought he'd like a Lloyd one. And so they didn't play it because, it's not going to make it through. A song about Lloyd isn't going to make it through Lloyd.
Okay.
To get to the air. So I figured we'll play it. Do you want to play it?
Well, yeah, Lloyd can't jump on the air and tell us not to play the Lloyd song.
So this one we got a little out there. We got a little out there in the songwriting about something that not a lot of people know about Lloyd. And so, Ben...
This is your Sgt. Pepper era or what?
We'll see. You be the judge.
Okay.
A little more of a country feel to it. But I give you Undercover Whiskers.
Lloyd's cold, radio producer by day, in the studio, all work and no play. But little do they know, there's a secret he keeps, a double life he lives when the city sleeps. Hiding in the shadows, he's a cat smuggler in disguise, moving felines like a whisper under moonlit skies. Lloyd's got secrets and he's got no time to waste. With every meow and purr, he's caught in his own chase. Undercover whiskers, cat mischief on his mind. Lloyd cold, pray they won't find out in time. Don't let the sirens wail or the radio crackle. The secret's safe as long as he can keep the act settled.
So this is about Lloyd's double life as a cat smuggler.
Cat smuggler.
Undercover Whiskers.
Undercover Whiskers.
Okay.
He's worried he's going to get caught. Smuggling felines.
While the city sleeps.
Moving felines like a whisper under moonlit skies. Yeah. He's a cat smuggler in disguise. Yeah.
I thought that was Sarah, to be honest with you, because she
did steal the cat.
She did
yeah.
steal a cat named Peanuts from the neighborhood. Someone was lost their cat at Liberty Park, and Sarah was the...
And he's got no time to waste. With every meow and purr, he's caught in his own chase.
I gotta say, I don't know how you do it, but you keep cranking out hits.
Cranking them out, buddy.
Who was the lead singer on that one?
Debbie.
Deb. Okay. So Carl and Dave and Debbie
and Deb
are your songwriting team.
Yeah.
I liked it. With the bar you had set with our last three songs, Jake and Ben, what's it called? Paradise Island? What's the Jake and
Island
Ben?
Vibe.
Island Vibe.
Dream on Ice.
Which obviously has a real reggae vibe.
Yeah.
Then Dream on Ice, which is a little more yacht rocky about the dream coats.
Uh-huh. Second Chances.
The throw-in song about Hands and Rock and Merlin.
It's more poppy. Yeah.
I didn't think you would have a fourth in you. I didn't think eventually you're going to fall off, right?
We've got range, buddy.
But you keep pumping out the hits.
All right. Let me know if there's somebody else you want me to write a song about.
You're the artist.
All right.
You start taking commissions, you're going to do a bad job. I think you're writing from the heart right now, and that's what matters. That's where it's really working.
My wife said, "Are you playing Lloyd's song?"
Well, she heard you writing it. She heard you stayed up all night writing it.
Yeah, she did. She heard us recording it. She saw the sesh.
Nice of her to trust you and Deb writing late through the night.
Oh, well, Deb's married.
Okay. Well, so are you. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
We could be professionals.
All right.
What are you implying?
I don't know. I didn't know Lloyd lived a secret life as a cat.
I don't understand.
Oh, that's not funny. Remember when we ended this at the New Year? Remember when that happened? All right, stay tuned.
Some great songs you can't kill.
Hans and Scott here coming up next. And that cat smuggler Lloyd, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Undercover with